I welcome all of you on the platform of Europedia Education, the channel for technocrats, where we are trying to connect you world over with other technocrats and telling various opportunities abroad. So in this video, I have interacted with the two students in who graduated from one of the universities in Australia, Sydney, University of New South Wales. You know, this is the university among first 50 in QS ranking. I will just show you that. And one student, he did his MS from University of New South Wales, and another student did his PhD from there. You know, from the very beginning I'm telling you that we will go abroad, what we will go in an intelligent way, like we will not spend money, in fact we will earn money. So one of the way to do that is if you go for direct PhD or if you go for PhD after MS, then because scholarship is there. So this interaction which I had with both of them, you will get lot of information, and the crux which I found is you can go either way, opportunities are there. But if you do masters from India and then go abroad for PhD, then the money spent is very less, because many of us are there who cannot spend money, like 30 40 50 lakh cannot be spent on doing MS. And if scholarship we don't get, we need to spend that money, our parents cannot support that. So the best way is that, okay, I can spend 2-3 lakh rupees, but not more than that. So that opportunity is possible only if you have masters in your pocket in India, which obviously you get with scholarship. So immediately after BTech, I don't want to spend any money and I want to have very good career abroad. And second thing is, in PhD, you can save money equal to the salary offered by PSUs in India. Listen carefully. When you do PhD abroad, let's say Australia, Canada, UK, USA, Europe, any countries, what I understood from the students, like you can save up to 1,000 US dollars. That means you can save up to 70,000 rupees, which is actually the salary of PSU. You cannot save that much money in India, and plus you get exposure or different kind of exposure, that is something different. So this is something which I think is we have to think of. So during this interaction you will understand that. So University of New South Wales is very very prestigious university. It is located in Sydney, and if you open the website, you'll find that University of New South Wales has 44th QS ranking in 2021, and then there are some another ranking bodies like Times Higher Education, World University Ranking or something. But still, this is among first top 50 universities in the world. So good universities to study. And where is this? Australia, you know, New South Wales, Sydney, you know, the location of Australia. This is the university is located. Then I interacted with the two students. Ambarish, he did his PhD from this university, and Abhishek did his MS from this university. So Abhishek went after BTech. In fact, Abhishek and Ambarish both cleared GATE exam, and Abhishek joined Delhi College, Delhi Technical University DTU for MTech. Did not like the course and went abroad to this university to pursue course of his interest. And Ambarish did his MTech from IIT Kharagpur, and did his MTech in material science and went there for PhD in material science, and now he is in UK doing his postdoctorate fellowship, and he wants to come back and serve in India in IIT system, something like that. So I had very good interaction with them, and I request you to listen totally what these people are saying, and we'll get lot of information during the interaction, and maybe that will help us to make the strategy to go abroad. Lot of opportunities abroad in universities, and we should go in such a way that we earn there. Actually, you understand one thing. If a student who is doing MTech in India with a scholarship, and he gets into PhD course abroad, and he gets a scholarship there, so that he's saving money, then you know we have resolved the problem of unemployment, or resolved the problem of opportunities which we think of in India. Because many students, you know, through GATE exam you can land up in IIT, NIT, good institutes, and if you maintain good CGPA, if you do good research work, you can get PhD in those countries where there are a lot of opportunities available. And then when we do PhD there, we get good scholarship, then our problem, this unemployment stuff will be over. We will get opportunities, and that is what we should listen and try to understand that. So now I invite all of you to come and join with me in the interaction with both of them. Okay, Abhishek, thanks a lot. And Boris, thanks a lot for giving your time on my platform. That is Your PD Education. Thanks a lot to both of you.
Thank you. It's all my pleasure, sir.
Okay. And Abhishek, you are presently in Australia, and Boris, you are presently in UK. So I initiate now our interaction. The purpose of the interaction is there are so many students in India who aspire to be in those places where you people have already reached now. And I want through you some information to go to them. उनको पता लगे कि कैसे कैसे क्या challenges हैं, क्या opportunities हैं, कैसे आप पहुंचे हो, how you have reached to these places, and what are you planning now forward, and what you can do. And I'm very sure आपके views, your views, and your journey will be very inspirational for them, and you will be role model for them. So I start from Abhishek, from you. Please tell everything about you first.
First of all, hello. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the opportunity, sir. I started my bachelor's from Punjab University UIT. 2000 started in 2012 in mechanical engineering. Graduated in 2016, and I was sir student only from 2015 in ECP. Then I was going through GATE preparation. I didn't score good. I didn't score good enough in GATE, but eventually I landed up in started doing MTech in DTU in Delhi. Then while studying over there, I realized that I wanted to go abroad. I had some premonitions from very early age that I want to go abroad. So I have started giving GRE, TOEFL, and other English exams. And after scoring a decent score, I started applying in US, some universities in UK, and as well as in Australia. And eventually, after realizing all the future perspectives about the job and where I want to settle immediately after my studies, so I landed up in UNSW in Sydney, that's University of New South Wales, and it is among the top three, top five universities in Australia, and it's in top 50, if I'm not wrong, in the latest ratings of this year of the world. And then I started my master's by engineering sciences in UNSW, and I graduated last year in September. And after that, I started applying for jobs, and here I am interacting with you. And I'm currently working as a freelance designer in Australia. Basically, it's a small business enterprise opened by me. I give my services to companies to make their designs, and currently I've applied for PhD in advanced manufacturing field in UNSW only.
Great. So Abhishek, there are so many things which I will be asking you, but before that, I go to Ambarish and ask everything about you, Ambarish.
Yeah, hello, sir. So first of all, thank you for providing this opportunity to come on this platform and to share my views, and my namaskar to all the viewers of this channel. So basically, myself, Ambarish Banerjee. I'm a mechanical engineer. I did my bachelor's from Sri Shankaracharya College of Engineering Technology. Then I work in the Aditya Birla Group as a project engineer. And during the project engineering, I wanted to do my master's, because one day when I was working with a German engineer, I found there was erection of the company, commissioning of the project, the plant was going on, and the turbine. If you know the turbine is a big shaft, and suddenly what happened, due to a very severe torque, the shaft of the turbine completely bent like this. It was completely like a waveform, and I saw it. I simply laughed. "Oh, it's gone." So the German engineer was there back to me. He said, "Why you are laughing?" I said, "It's gone. I don't know what we'll do now." So he said, "Oh, you engineers who don't know anything." So anyway, so he asked a person for a helping hand. I gave a person. So I saw that from the other end, there was a counter stand bolt. He was just opening the bolt, and slowly, the entire shaft, which is just like a waveform, it just got straightened. And I was so, my goodness, what's happened? So he said, "This is known as spring steel. This is the beauty of materials in science." Okay. I thought, okay, that's great. So there I got interested. No, if I have to do a master's, I will do in material science and engineering. My specialization should be. So then I wrote the GATE examination. I got an IIT Kharagpur. So my master's in material science and engineering from IIT Kharagpur. I passed out in 2015, and from during my research work from 2014 to 15, I was in NML Jamshedpur at NML Jamshedpur with Professor J.K. Sahu. I work on a project on the fatigue and creep fatigue interaction behavior of superalloy 718. This project was sponsored by GTRE, unit of DRDO to NML, and I was working as a MTech student. And since my work was good and I was able to publish a paper in a Q1 journal, so I tried for the PhD. And in 2016, I got a PhD from UNSW Australia with Professor Prushti. I also got a PhD from Monash University as well, but I prefer UNSW because this was more relevant to my field. So my PhD was on the solid mechanics behavior. So I started in 2016 in UNSW. So my PhD is on the deformation behavior of high carbon steel, which is under the when it's considered under impact, fatigue as well as strain rate loading. So basically, if you know, in big cement plants or in grinding plants, we have the grinding balls which are used for breaking the big lumps of mass into small pieces. So my project was sponsored by industry, which is known as Molycorp. So this PhD was under the Australian Research Council Industrial Transformation Priority Hub. So I joined as a PhD candidate there, and I finished my PhD within a record time of 3 years, which it's quite difficult to get. The scholarship is for 3.5 years, but I'm able to finish within 3 years, in spite having all the hurdles. And I'm very happy to share that my thesis has been nominated by the department for the Malcolm Chaplin Award, which is a single award which is given for each year for the best PhD thesis in the entire UNSW. So
Great.
my thesis has been nominated by the department for that, and the outcome of in the at the university level is in November end, I believe. So hope for the best. So it's there in the top position list. So after that, in my third year, I was looking for job opportunities. So obviously UK was my always my first priority, UK and Europe. And the motto behind coming to UK because I always want to have explore Europe because I'm a very nature loving person. So I love nature because I always feel nature is something which teaches us a lot. So that's also a motto to come to UK. So I applied for jobs at few places. So I got one position from Canada McMaster University. I got one at UK, and the third one with my Professor Pushti. But he insisted me that I should go for a lab. So I joined in UK. So I came in 2018, 1st of October. I joined as a research associate in the Advanced Forming Research Center. So basically lab which works on the applied engineering, and it mostly what you are doing the same thing we do. We try to fill the gap between the industry and the fundamental research. So we correlate the fundamental research with the applied engineering.
Great.
Honestly, it's mostly a industry solution type of work. So we do all the work of big projects such as of Boeing, of Rolls Royce, either in the field of gas turbines or advanced forming, radial forging, friction welding, all those things. So it's an advanced manufacturing hub. So I'm working here as a research associate. Currently, I'm working on the projects which are basically dealing with the landing gears, which are mostly used in the airplanes. And the other thing is I'm working on the rotary friction welding of the pipeline systems of Baker Hughes. These pipelines are usually used for the oil excavation and for the drilling application. So my research interest mostly lies in the field of the strain rate deformation behavior, creep fatigue interaction, process modeling, finite element simulation, like this. So
Great.
this is all about me.
Very. So now I think I can go for some straight questions and we can interact on that. So Abhishek, my question to you is: you joined after your BTech, you joined Masters in Delhi Technical University, which is quite good actually. That is located in Delhi also, and you were in production and you left it after 1 year. You did not find it very interesting, maybe. So you left it after 1 year, and then you thought of joining some university abroad. Tell me, Abhishek, very clearly which exams, suppose some student wants to follow your footsteps. He is looking forward to join the top university. I think QS ranking is very high within first 50 of the this university, UNSW, where you did your masters. So if some student wants to join, which exam he is to clear, what credentials are required, and how much money is required? These questions very straight.
Okay, sir. So first of all, the basic thing that the Australian university require is the English score. So in Australia, there are IELTS, TOEFL, and the third is PTE. Like there are three different types of English exams. You can give any three of it, and there are different criterias. What's the minimum score required for the student visa?
I'm sorry, Abhishek, I'll keep on obstructing you wherever some doubt comes to my mind. So
No
you
problem,
mentioned
sir.
three exams, IELTS, PTE, TOEFL. Many times
Yes.
student asks, sir, what is the difference and which one should we go for? And that is even for some universities like UK, Netherlands or Canada, they want these scores. So which exam they should go for out of these three?
Okay. So if any student is applying for Canada as well as European universities as well as Australia, then my personal recommendation is to give IELTS,
Okay.
as it is accepted, I think, in all the nations, if I'm not wrong.
Hmm.
PT, however, if I'm not wrong, is exclusively in Australia at the moment. But giving PT, scoring in PT is relatively easier than both the exams. This is what I experience because I give TOEFL as well.
Mhm.
So all the three exams. The formats are not that different, I would say.
Mhm.
It's just that you just need to know the basic thing, what exactly is required, and
Right.
heaps of information is available on YouTube to understand that.
Mhm.
And yes, I have never taken any coaching for that. It's
Mhm.
very easy. I'm
Mhm.
not a very good English speaker, but if I can do it, anyone can do it.
Okay. Mhm.
And first thing is the English score. Second of all, since my bachelor's was from Punjab University and it is considered as level one, there are different levels in which the foreign universities consider the Indian universities level one, level two, and level three.
Mhm.
I don't know exactly what exactly they look for in the level one, level two, and level three. But Punjab University was decent enough, and it was in level one. And my bachelor's CGPA was around 7.5 something. So it wasn't that high. It was average CGPA. But and these are the basic two things that Australian universities look for.
So GRE is
But
not
for
required. GRE is not
GRE is
required.
not required in Australia.
Good. Mhm.
In Australia, GRE is not
None of
required.
the universities.
None of the universities.
Okay. Great.
And I applied in 4 or 5 universities. The first one, Monash, this UNSW, University of Melbourne, and University of Sydney as well. I got offered in Monash as well as UNSW and University of Melbourne as well. But due to some personal reasons, I opted for UNSW because
Okay, Abhishek, just before our interaction, you were showing me some PPT in which there were some universities written. So my question
yes.
to you is, can you suggest some 5 to 10 universities for the students who aspire to be in Australia? Some names.
Okay. So uh, the universities name that I'm gonna say now are, I would say, it's my opinion. If someone wants to come in Australia, this must be their priority. Which university should they opt for? At the moment, please forget about the fees and everything. I'll just say as per their ranking and as well as for their mechanical background and overall as well.
Okay.
So the first one in Australia is University of Melbourne,
Okay.
then Australian National University, University of Sydney, University of New South Wales, University of Queensland, Monash University, University of Western Australia, University of Adelaide, UTS, it's in Sydney, and Macquarie University, that's also in Sydney.
Okay. So,
And
Abhishek, you did not mention about your IELTS score. You mentioned about your CGPA, which you said is not very high, but IELTS score, what was the?
so I gave PT before coming
Okay.
to Australia.
Mm.
So my PT score was so the PT score is like, it does not come like 9.5 or like this. It's equivalent to TOEFL only,
Okay.
but there are 4 sections, and it's scored out of 90, and out of 90, 79 is considered as 8 of IELTS
Mhm.
in all the sections. Like 8 bands in IELTS is
Right.
equivalent to 79 in PT.
Okay. Good.
So I had speaking 90, reading, writing 75, and listening was 85. And for the student visa, the minimum was around 56 or something.
Mhm.
I don't clearly remember at the moment, but it was around 56 or 65.
Mhm.
So it's very easy to score for anyone. You just need to understand the format, and it's very easy.
Okay.
And yes, so that's for the English score. And second was the university. Yes, then university. How is the university like? What's the level of the university? But it does not mean if your university comes in level 2, it's not considered. It will look at your they will look at your credentials, what's your score, and how you write your SOP.
Okay. So SOP is
And
also very important. Is that a research proposal only or only statement of purpose?
it's the statement of purpose is I would say it's not that important.
Okay.
They just look at your score. I think the score is considered as the topmost priority in these universities,
Okay.
especially for the masters,
Okay.
and yes, the English score as well.
Okay. So these two criteria. And now my
These
next
two are-
question, my next question, Abhishek, how many universities someone should apply into, and what is the kind of finance or cost incurred in this?
uh, I applied through one of my agent in India. I think it was SIEC. They have association with Australian universities, so you don't need to pay anything while applying, because whatever fees you're gonna give to the university, they get the cuts and all. They do everything for you. They do
Okay.
everything for you.
Okay.
So and I applied in Australia. I applied for 4 to 5 universities, because my case was a little bit strong because of the score as well as my other criterias. My case was strong, and they were sure that you will be easily getting at least 2 to 3 offers. But my personal recommendation is to apply for in all the 10 universities that I have said before.
Okay.
Uh, and I sent you that PDF also. You can show it during
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
interaction
Mm.
channel.
Mm.
And 9 to 10 universities, yes. And coming to the fees part, fees for each course is around, for international students, is around $5,500 to $6,000
Okay.
Australian dollars.
Okay.
That that is in the G8 university. It means the top 8 universities.
Okay.
If you go in like UTS, Macquarie, it comes down to around 4,000 to 5,000, in between 4,000 to 5,000.
So Abhishek, entire this MS course, how much money a person is to spend if you tell in Indian currency?
Okay, sir. In Indian currency, if I say my total fees for masters was around 40 to 45 lakhs, just the fees I'm
Okay.
talking about.
That is in Indian currency, you're saying, right?
Yes, sir. That's
Okay.
40 to 45 lakhs.
That includes everything or only fees?
It's just the course fees, like
Okay.
your university fees that you're going to give to the university. It does not include your traveling expenses and anything.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
because the traveling expenses are quite relative, so that is why I'm not
But
mentioning that.
now Abhishek, let me come back to another point. Like in India, as you know, not everybody can afford 45 lakh. Forget, not everybody can afford even 15, 20 lakh. Now, may I ask you, if somebody does not have money, there's a student who does not have money, and his level is not very good in financially, and he aspires to be in those universities. Then what is the criteria? How he can approach? Can he get loan or something, or what he can do?
Yes, sir. For a student like me, I approached the banks, obviously. So I took loan from the bank, from the government bank, and after all those detailing and all everything, they offered me the loan. Like they funded me fully. That you can take the loan, and with and here and they pay you in installments. You have to send your results back to the bank, and then after viewing the results, they give you the another installment for your next semester. So that's their way. And if you don't have money, if you don't get the loan, my personal recommendation is to do masters, is to prepare better for GATE and do your masters in IITs.
Yes, and then come
That
for PhD.
then come for PhD, because PhD is fully funded. Like you
Okay.
rather you get paid, like
And that is
you get paid.
for that we have another candidate, Ambarish here. That we'll get details from Ambarish for that. Good.
Yes, sir.
In fact, Abhishek, I tell that only to my students that you do masters. Maybe even you remember, I must have told that sometime in class that you do MTech in India. There's a reason you do GATE and then do MTech, and then you can save the money. That is what I tell.
Yes, yes.
So that is one is
And there is another provision for economically weaker section people who, like, if I'm not wrong, I know a few people over here who, like, they are not well to do financially, but they are very good in knowledge and they are very hardworking people. They got scholarship from their state government. I don't know their names. I don't know their names. It's offered by a few state governments. Like they get fully funded from the government only. And there are few conditions to it. First of all, your family income must be less than 2 lakhs per annum, something like that, and you have to come back to India after certain, like, after finishing your study and doing some work. You have to come back to India. If you don't come back to India, then you have to pay all the fees that you have, all the money that you have taken from the government. I
okay.
think these are the few conditions over there, but they are, but earning money after you get a job in Australia is not a big, it's not a big deal. Like it's very easy to earn money in Australia if you get a job. You can easily you can easily earn that much amount of money, that like 40 to 45 lakhs INR in 2 years
Okay, so
easily.
Abhishek, I have two questions. One, you said it is very easy to earn money if you get a job. So if you get a job, how it is it? Easy it is. If you get a job, how easy it is?
So that if is very big actually.
That if is big, right?
Very
Okay,
big, sir. Very big.
okay. So my next question is: during your MS, is there opportunity to earn
Uh,
money and reduce the burden of the fees
yes,
during your MS?
yeah. During MS, I was working as a manager in one of the gas stations, like a petrol station in India. I was working as a manager over there.
Great.
So on your student visa, we get a permit to work 40 hours fortnightly. That is 20 hours per week you can work.
Great.
And legally they say 20 hours, but I know a lot of people who just work and they don't even come to university. They just earn money
Okay, great.
and they just
Just
earn
earn
money
money.
illegally, earn in cash
Okay.
and something like that.
So if I talk about only 20 hours, which you said is permitted, so that 20 hours of work, how much remuneration can you get monthly?
Here in Australia, it's on weekly basis, but I can tell you on the monthly basis after calculating. Like on on monthly basis, you can earn up to around 1 lakh INR if you work 20 hours, and 1 lakh.
That's
But
it. If 1
obviously,
lakh
the
per
living
week means 4
expenses
lakh per
are
month, right?
no. I'm talking about 1 lakh per month.
1 lakh per month.
Sorry.
Okay.
I think I said it wrong. 1 lakh per month,
Mm-hmm.
around I would say around 25 to 30,000.
So that
That's the
means
average
okay. So
a
that means
school will get.
50% burden you can reduce, right?
Uh, Not exactly, sir, because if you are earning like 1 lakh per month, more than like 50, around 50% goes in rent only, sir. The
Okay.
living in Sydney
Very costly.
is expensive.
Okay.
Unless you're living with some of your relatives also, unless there are
Mm-hmm.
certain circumstances.
Great.
But yes,
So,
earning, and then obviously you need to manage your finances. Yes, there are few people who just earn in Sydney and pay their fees also.
okay. Great. So and by the way, Abhishek, which stream did you master in there, MS? What was your specialization?
My specialization was itself in mechanical engineering only. That is the reason I left production engineering in DTU.
So you
I
wanted to be in
wanted
mechanical.
I wanted to explore all the fields, because I had some inclination toward designing, but I was doing some production work, like most of like other production based masters I was doing over there. So that was one of the major reason why I left MTech in India and I went to do masters in Australia. And yes, I started with masters of engineering. That degree is somewhat more oriented if you want to work after your masters. But while doing my master's and after talking with Ambarish sir and a few of my friends, I entered into Masters of Engineering Science that is more research based, and I wanted to, so I started started developing interest for research, and I did my master's in mechanical engineering itself.
Great. So now I come to next part of the story. Like Abhishek, your example who went after BTech to pursue masters, but yes, there is a, what I understand now is there is a kind of money incurred involved in that, to 40 to 50 lakh you mentioned. Ambarish is another example where he did his masters from IIT Kharagpur in material science, and I will also discuss, Ambarish, with you that why material science, you have already told that it is out of your interest, and many students, though material science I find is very good domain, many students keep on asking, sir, what opportunities will get after that. So that question I'll come to that little later. But Ambarish, again I will come, even Abhishek said that after masters if you go for PhD, that is something which is very good decision. Again, my very straight question to you is, after MS, what are the exams which you need to write to get into those universities, and what is the money incurred, and how much money you should have in your pocket?
Yeah. So actually, sir, for if you want to get into a PhD, the most important thing is you have to apply to different universities. But before applying to the universities, you should have to speak with the relevant faculties. So basically, it depends from region to region. So suppose if you are applying in America, so what happens in America, you have to give the GRE examination, and any of the English examination, I think TOEFL or IELTS is required with a score of 7, 6.5 or 7. And so then you have to apply for the specific universities there, and LOR, that is the letter of recommendation, has to be sent by the respective referees to whom you have mentioned. They will send the LOR, and based of that day you will get admission. In America, you have to choose the university and then you can apply. But it's a bit different if you come to Australia or the European nation. What happens, because I have an experience in applying to all of these countries. In case of Europe and in Australia, what happens? You have to reach to the supervisor or any of the potential professor, any of the either assistant, associate, or professor. So you have to ask them whether he has any vacancy available for any PhD position. So if he comes with some points that, yeah, I have a vacancy in this field, then he will contact with you. You have to have a Skype meeting, and there will be a small discussion about your research credentials. They will ask some few questions about on your masters, and if they find that your career, that your background is suitable for particular PhD proposal topic, then they will ask you for a formal application. So if the faculty is asking for a formal application, if it invite you for a formal application, the chances of getting the PhD is extremely high. I will say I'm more than 95% sure that you will get admission to PhD. But the second things come is the scholarship. So basically, if you go in Australia, they give the PhD admission, and then after 1 or 2 weeks they give the scholarship. So you will get a PhD for sure. But whether you'll get a scholarship or not, you have to wait for some time. Now that scholarship depends on 2 or 3 factors. First is your CGPA. It should be more than 7.5, they say, but if it's more than 8, then you are in a much comfortable region. Second thing, if you are going for PhD in Australia, they see your bachelor's or MTech. If you have a bachelor's from IIT with a CGPA of more than 8, they will directly give you a PhD opportunity. Even if you are MTech from IIT, then also you are eligible. But they will not give a PhD for a BTech student who is from REC or any other. So there's a very strict requirement that they need IIT. Though they don't say, but they always prefer the IIT is always preferable. It is mentioned like this. Similarly for the PhD as well, they want MTech from the IITs. So they have a criteria of strict criteria that it should be in the top 400. So that will help you for getting the scholarship. So once the scholarship, you need not to give any examination for Australia, even for Europe when I was applying, because at that time English was one of the official language of the country. But in 2016, under amendment, the English language has been removed by the country. So within the 18 official language, I think English was not there in 2000. After 2016, they removed it. So that's why I faced a bit problem, because I didn't have I gave an English examination. So I got a confirmed admission and a PhD and a scholarship in UNSW. But what happened in Monash University, at the last moment they asked me for the English certification course, and I said I've not given any, and at least it will take around 1.5 months. So I have to write a letter to the dean, and then it went well, but everything was good. So I got a PhD offer from Monash as well. But the only thing was that at that time English was when I applied for UNSW, English was the official language of the country, so that's why I was bit able to not give an examination. But I think now it's bit required, and I think it's better if you give a English examination, because it can help you for US as well. Some of the European nations, they don't want any English examination. Suppose Germany, Netherlands, they will not ask you for any English examination. They just look at your research background, your credentials in masters as well as bachelors, and LOR is something which is really very important for getting a PhD into any of the foreign universities. Now, if I come to UK, the scene is bit different. They have a site which is known as jobs.ac.uk. All the vacancies will be advertised on that particular relevant platform only. It's jobs.ac.uk, and you have to see the vacant. You have to see the advertisement there. If you feel that's relevant, then you can apply for it. It's there even in European nations as well and Australia as well. But I think it's much better if you can speak to the faculties, if you start mailing them. So I started in during my second year of my masters. I started mailing to the faculty saying that so this is my credentials. So I think I've applied to more than 300 or 350 professors, and then I got a call from 10 or 15 with the positive sign. And then after the interview, I think I got a 2 or 3 final offers in my hand. So you have to start speaking with the professors for getting into the PhD. And one thing I would like to add to Abhishek's point as well regarding the scholarship for the masters. What I found when I went to Australia, that many of the people, they're not aware about the scholarship schemes. So Indian government, they really spend a lot of money for providing scholarship to the Indian students when they're going to abroad. So there is a very good website which is known as Gyandhan.com. So it's a site which is maintained by the government of India, and most of the scholarship which you will see there, you have to go through each of them. There are, I think, 19 or 20 scholarship. If I read a few, the Erasmus Mundus Joint Master's Degree, Fulbright Nehru Scholarship is there. Fulbright Nehru Scholarship for the MS as well as for the doctoral students are there. Then you have the National Overseas Scholarship scheme by the Indian government, Orange Tulip Scholarship. So each has been mentioned there. So these are the scholarship which is given by the government of India. So the entire money is given by the government of India, and you go study and you come back. Apart from that, there are many few scholarship which is given by the private bodies. Suppose JRD Tata, there is a Tata scholarship which is given for the students, but they need some background. Like, I think for the Tata scholarship, if the average income of the family is less than some particular amount threshold year money, then you can get the avail that scholarship. And so for the poor, for the backward people with who are below the poverty line or something like that, there are some specific criteria for that. But there are lots and lots of trustees who are willing to send the students outside, and they sponsor their study up to a more extent. Apart from the Indian government, what I'm saying. Apart from that, there are some scholarships which provide the money for the to and fro journey for India. And this mostly started after, if you remember, Anand Kumar. Anand Kumar was a person who got into Cambridge, but he was not having any money. And I think after that, lot of charity bodies, they come to sponsor their to and fro, because there are many students in India, even if they have done an MTech from IITs, if they are from a very backward background, not backward, I will say, the economy not stable. Oh yeah, so chances that they even don't have the money for going to have the plane fare and going to Australia and coming back. So at that time, there are many charitable bodies who work in this direction, and they give you the sponsorship for this to and fro journey. So the only thing that people should know about the scholarships, and Gyan Dhan is the one of the best sites where you can get all the government aids this scholarship programs.
Okay. Amarish, you mentioned about two very important things. One is gyandhan.com.
Yeah,
Obviously, I'll make a
Gyandhan.
dedicated video on this for information to students. But tell me, Gyandhan.com is what kind of scholarship for pursuing higher education abroad or what?
Yeah, it's actually in the Gyandhan.com is a website which is maintained by the government of India,
Okay,
and inside the website you will find around 19 or 20 scholarships,
great,
which is
great.
given by the government. Suppose, for example, sir, we know the Commonwealth Scholarship. Commonwealth Scholarship is a very
Yes,
prestigious
yes.
scholarship.
Hmm.
So it's given by the government of India for a if you want to study in UK for a
Okay.
PhD.
Hmm.
Similarly, for the masters also, if I see there are a
So,
lot of
so did you use it, Ambarish, for your
no,
case?
no, because I got my masters from the because I had a very clear frame, just like you, that I always wanted to do my masters from India because I always wanted that no, I need at least one degree from the IIT. It's a
Hmm,
prestige to
hmm,
be
hmm, hmm,
it's
hmm.
prestige to be said as an
So this
IIT.
Gyandhan.com is for BTech students to go for MS or MTech students to go for PhD or both?
It's for both. It's for both for the masters as well as for the PhD level.
Great,
So
great. And
yeah,
then next you mentioned about job.ac.uk. What is that?
yeah, jobs.ac.uk is especially if you want to do a PhD in UK. So that is the most relevant platform because all the PhD vacancies or the postdoctorate vacancies, every vacancy will be advertised in this particular this
But
website.
the name job is something which looks like a different.
Yeah. It's mentioned jobs.ac.uk, but actually they in here they consider PhDs also as a job because they pay some money for you as a scholarship. So it's a tax-free
So
income.
similar to this job.ac.uk, are there other sites in Australia and US kind of countries also, or only in UK it is there?
Yeah. There is a euroscience.com. Euroscience.com, you will get all the vacancies for the PhD. Euroscience is for the Europe. It's for
Okay.
the European nations, euroscience.com. Exactly, yeah, it's Euroscience, yeah.
Okay,
And for the
Ambarish, okay, sorry, you continue. I think I interrupted.
yeah, that's fine. But yeah, regarding America, I will not able to mention much because America was not in my very priority list. So I always
Okay.
focus on UK,
So
Europe,
you
and
said euroscience.com for Europe, and then you said jobs.ac.uk for UK, right?
yeah,
Okay.
jobs.ac.uk for UK.
And Boris,
In
you
the
said you said
yes,
something very important, like Australian universities look for IIT background. For
yeah.
masters, they want a BTech from there, for easy entry, and then for PhD, they want masters. Now, my question to you is, what if somebody has done masters from NIT? Are they
No,
considering
no,
NIT also?
no. Actually, what I mean to say that if you want a direct admission for PhD in
Okay.
Australia, so
Hmm.
for that, if you have a BTech from IIT, then they will directly give you admission for PhD.
Okay.
That time
Done.
you need
Done.
not. They will waive off the must. But suppose if you are a BTech from, suppose a government engineering college or NIT, they will not give you directly PhD. You have to enroll for a master's course, and after that, then they will adopt you for a PhD.
Okay. But
In India also it has happened. Suppose if you are
no,
a
no.
BTech from IIT.
Okay. No, I'm asking you this, Ambarish. Like, suppose you are MTech from IIT, like you are MTech from IIT Kharagpur, you were. So,
Yeah.
how for you getting PhD in Australia, how easy it was or how difficult it was?
Yeah, so actually getting into the any of the top 8 Australian universities, apart from being from any of the IITs, the one more thing which is very important is a publication. If suppose you have a publication in any of the Q1 or Q2 journals, then that will very easily will make a path for you to enter into any of the top universities. The paper is something they don't say that it's essential. They say it's a desirable, but it is a very important parameter if you want to do PhD in Australia if you are MTech from IIT. But
Okay.
suppose if you are a master's from UNSW or any of the Australian university, then the paper requirement is not there. The best example is Abhishek because Abhishek has applied. Since he has a master's from UNSW, if he doesn't have a paper in his master, that's fine. It will be waived out. But suppose if I am a master from IIT, I need a paper that will really increase my chances of getting a PhD with a full scholarship.
And as a student of MTech, what is there any CGPA requirement also?
Above 8 is fine, sir. Above 8
Okay.
is because UNSW has a platform where if you put all the details, then they will show whether you are eligible for a scholarship or not. So I have tried for some of my friends. So if you put 7.9, they said you are not eligible for a scholarship. But if you
Okay.
put 8, they show that you are eligible for a
Okay.
scholarship. So
And any exam of English language is also required, Ambarish?
no, I think now it may be required, but if you are from the IITs, because they mentioned at the background that all the classes are in English mode of instruction English, so English examination was not required when I joined, but I think now you have to give a TOEFL or IELTS exam.
Okay,
Yeah,
so it is like
because
this, and as you said, you started from second semester or third semester of your masters. So it is like this: if somebody is doing his masters from IIT, then he needs to maintain his 8 plus CGPA. He should do something like research. If you could publish a good paper, and then yeah,
yeah,
then
I think that's important in Europe as well. So
okay,
it's nobody will say that no, you have to get a paper in master, but if you have a paper in master, that will boost up your candidature, because if people can understand, okay, this person has published a paper from his masters only, so their confidence increases that okay, this person has a masters, has one paper, so he can easily publish in PhD as well. So people, you need not to groom as a lot, because you already has been groomed during your masters, so their job at that time decreases. So that's why I feel it's very important to have a
okay,
paper.
Ambarish, you need to contact professors also for getting admission in
Yeah,
this.
I think for Europe and for Australia, it's very, very important that you have to contact the professors. You have to. So the best thing is, I always say that PhD is a PhD from any of the institute across anywhere in the world. But I also believe that people have a fascination for good universities. So they consider, suppose in India, IITs, they are considered as the dream for any of the engineering students, right? So I think everyone has a fascination. So the best thing, if you select for the best universities where you want to go, and then you should see the faculties who are working in your field, and then you start writing with them. And the most important thing when you're writing to a faculty is the cover letter. It's the most important thing, because 70 to 80% of your skills will be assessed by the faculty on the basis of your cover letter, what you've written. A single
Okay,
grammatical mistake will definitely ruin your candidature. So it's very important to write a cover letter, and there are very specific sites which dedicatedly mentions about how to write a cover letter. So people normally say cover letter, oh, I'm a bachelor's, I'm a master doing blah blah blah, and my research interest in this and this. I want a PhD, PhD from your institution. Please let me know. But it's not the way. You have to pitch up your idea in a very progressive and a very narrative manner. You have to show your interest. You have to show the further other people that why I'm interested in your lab, though you may be interested in 100 different faculties, but that faculty should know that why you are interested to work with him. It's not just a you have got a mail, or professor this, okay, I want to mail to him. No, the professor should get a feel that yes, this person has done a bit of research about my field. He knows in which field I'm working, what are my research credentials, and then he has applied for me. That field should always be conveyed to the faculty, so that increases your chances. The professor also feel, oh, this person has read about me, he knows about my work, okay, now I can have a discussion with him. So it's very, very, very important.
so cover letter, what I understood from you is sort of, I mean, research proposal also, and it should be linked with the work which professor is doing, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah. So when you write a cover letter, basically the first para of the cover letter will always mention about who are you, what you're currently doing. The second para should be about what are your research interests, currently what you're doing. But having said that, there should always be a line which one should mention at the last, that though my research interests are this and this, but I'm ready to work in any other research field if you feel so. Because the faculty should not get the idea that oh, this person will only work on this particular field. If I remove this field and if I assign the other field, he will not work on that. That should not be the idea which the faculty should get impression. So you should always be open to any. Yeah, I have an interest in this field, but if there I can work in any of the field. And then you have to mention about that I have gone through some of your publications. You're working in this in particular field, suppose in composites or metal matrix composites or metal, and I'm very fascinated in work in this particular direction. And I have a project in my mind in this way. Though the PhD studentship already decided, the professor already had a PhD topic in his mind, but if you come up with some ideas, that's really very great. Because suppose in India, sir, we have the MHRD scholarship. MHRD
yes,
scholarship, the topic is decided by the faculty, right? So if a faculty gets a good novel idea from you, he may always work on it. And there are some PhD which is based on industrial focus. Suppose I work with the industry project work. So I was not able to have any of my ideas. Any of my ideas means my project was very well defined. Now in that I have to create the new things and I have to do the research findings. So there are both the ways possible.
okay, Ambarish, let me ask both of you a question very straight. A student doing MTech, not from IIT, not from NIT, from very ordinary college in India,
Yeah.
but doing good MTech, getting 8 plus CGPA, maybe because doing good work, and will be publishing paper also. So he wants to join Australian university, not top 10 university, but any university which provides him PhD. And if he does good work in PhD, maybe he gets career. Why I'm telling you this? Because this is the story of 80 to 90% of master's students in India. You did masters from IIT Kharagpur, but not everybody are doing that. Even if I remove IIT and NIT also, now here there are so many students who are from very ordinary colleges, state colleges. As Abhishek mentioned, the college from where Abhishek graduated, or college from where you graduated. Suppose somebody is doing MTech in those colleges, and he has a dream to go to Australian university. Though he has got 8 plus CGPA, though he has published a paper, but he is not having IIT, NIT brand or something. So can he think of getting into any of the University of Australia, which is reasonably good? And if he does good in PhD, can he get career there? And does he require huge money in his pocket to do that or not? My straight question.
Abhishek, should I answer?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Of course.
it's very possible, sir. It's very possible. It's very likely that though there are chances if you're getting into the top 8 G8 colleges might be a bit less, but if you have a good publication record and you have a good quality of your master's work is good and you have a good publications, then yeah, there are very good chances of you're getting into the PhD from any of the reputed college. The best example I would say one of my friend Arnab Chakravarti. He's doing his PhD in UNSW. His master is not from IIT. His master is from it's Thapar University.
Okay,
Thapar
good.
University
Mhm.
is Punjab. Yeah, Thapar
Yes,
is a
yes.
very good university, but it's not in the
But not
IIT.
IIT, NIT, yes.
Yeah, so he is a MTech from Thapar University, and he got in as a PhD candidate in UNSW with full scholarship.
So
He
the
got
same
in
university
UNSW
where you did your PhD, he's
yeah,
also
yeah,
doing
yeah.
PhD.
Yeah, he got PhD from Deccan as well as admission from UNSW, but he chose UNSW. So that's what I'm saying. IIT, if you're having a degree from IIT, that's always good. It's always an upper side. But if you're not, that doesn't mean that the entire that the road is blocked. If you have,
Okay.
I think he was having two publication. He was having one publication as the first author and two publication as the co-author. So that helped him to get into the UNSW. So even if you're not from the top IITs or the NITs, but if you are from a government college or
Good college.
normal college, good college with a decent publication, you will get into the top 8 any top 8 G8 colleges of Australia. That's
Very
complete.
good.
And that's in Europe as well.
Yes, yes, great. Ambarish, I'm still to get answer to my another straight question to you, and that was
Yeah.
how much money you should have in your pocket.
Yeah, absolutely. You should not require any money. 1 lakh rupees is fine to come to Australia. That's
Okay,
it.
so is that so huge difference? Like Abhishek was saying, like 40 to 50 lakh is required, and now you are saying only 1 lakh is required. So
Yeah,
why that
because
huge?
because if you do PhD, you will get a scholarship, and your scholarship starts the moment the day you join. You have to get a form filled by the supervisor. You have to submit to the GRS. GRS is a graduate research school, and from the next month, you will start getting the scholarship.
Okay.
So
Hmm.
the scholarship amount is more than sufficient for the living expenses, and because the tuition fee is already been waived off by the university, so whatever the money they give is for your personal expenditure, and you can save a lot of money from there as well.
And Boris, many students in India, when I tell them to, there are obviously some kind of job scarcity in the market and all, and students look for, and their students belong to very normal families. Sometimes they have to give back to the family also. So if I shoot a question to you, like suppose I join PhD in Australian University, as you said, scholarship is there. Can he also work for 20 hours a week, as Abhishek mentioned? And if that is true, can he save money and send back home, India?
Yeah, yes, sir. Very easy. It's very easy. So I will come to this answer in two parts. The first part is suppose if I don't work for 20 hours.
Yes, yes.
In PhD, you can allow to work for 20 hours, but suppose if I don't work for 20 hours, the PhD gives a scholarship of around 2,200 Australian dollar for 28 days per month, I will say. So it around $1050 Australian dollar, which you get for every fortnight. So every 14 night in Australia, the payment system is like that. So if I consider my case, the only thing is you have to lead a very normal life. If you say I will go to pubs, bar, and I
Yeah.
will spend the money, then you cannot save any money.
Yes.
So I used to get a scholarship of $2,000 per month, and I used to save more than $1,100.
So that
It
is how
includes
much in Indian currency?
55,000.
55,000 you are saving, right?
I saved through my PhD scholarship around 10 lakhs, 10 to 12
So
lakhs
you're a
from my
rich man
PhD.
now, huh?
I'm not rich because because I'm a person who don't keep the money in my bank. I give to my brother and all the.
Ambarish, saving 55,000 rupees monthly means you are saving more than a person can save in public sector job,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
in India students aspire for. You know, India, you know, the rush top 100 student in GATE will aspire to be in public sector where you get
Public sector.
70,000 scholarship as a salary, but you cannot save 55,000. Yes, that's good.
Yeah, so that's what I said, that you have to maintain a normal life, because when I was in Australia, I was sharing a room, but there are many students who say, no, I want 1 BHK entire flat for
Okay.
me. I want a
Mhm.
single room for me.
Mhm.
Then in that case, you will able to save less money. But in my third year and my second year, I was in a single room. It was a house of 6 rooms, and I was in a single room. But then also I was saving around 50,000 from each month.
Great.
And
Great.
apart from that, the 20 hours which you said. The best part when you're doing a PhD, that you can take the classes for the postgraduate as well as for the undergraduate students, a demonstrator. So I used to do around 15 or 18 hours per week, and from there I used to save around whatever the amount, the money is very high in terms of demonstrator. It's around 55 or 60 now per hour. So it's around 3,000 rupees per hour you will get as a demonstrator. So if we work for 20 hours, you are getting around 20 into 360, 23, around 60,000 rupees per
Week.
month, per week. Sorry, 6,000, right? How much it will be?
So
Yes.
that is per week only, right? 20 hours per
Yeah,
week.
yeah. So it's a huge amount, but you cannot work for 20 hours when you're a PhD student, because you have
Yes,
to look
yes.
after your
Mhm.
peers. So I used to work for 7 or 8 hours per week. So I used to get around 10 or 15,000 rupees extra from my demonstration as well. And when you're checking the copies, that gives you another extra money. So in overall, I would say, sir, I saved around 18 lakhs from my PhD. I
Okay,
saved
so
around
that is
18
that
lakhs.
is 3 years, right?
Yeah, within 3 years, I saved 18 lakhs rupees.
That's great. That's great. In
Which
3 years,
includes the
18.
scholarship.
I tell you, Ambarish, students will be so much impressed with this data
Yeah,
rather
yeah.
than all previous data. 3
No, no,
lakhs,
yeah,
18
because
lakhs. Yeah,
you can
that's
easily
good.
save. I have seen my friend Gajendra. He was in Australia. He stays with her wife
Mhm.
during his PhD. And
Mhm.
because of, since he was doing the demonstration job, he was getting the
Mhm.
money, so he was very well able to sustain. He was living in a 1 BHK flat. So you can save. If you're a family, then you can stay with the family as well. So that's what I
Okay.
want.
Okay, Ambarish, tell me one thing. When if a student is doing MTech and is doing good MTech in India, does he need to get worried about his career? Because what it
No,
looks like, I mean, it looks like he can get into PhD, and if he gets into PhD abroad, he can save 50,000. Then where is the need to get worried?
there is no point in worry. I think, uh, especially if you're in India, if you're doing a master's from India, and if you're in the core sectors,
Mhm.
I can't not predict much about the software sector. But if you're in the core sector, you need not to worry, because India is the manufacturing hub. The entire world after China, India is the country which
Mhm.
has a lot of manufacturing hub. We depend on ourselves. If I say
Mhm.
Australia doesn't have any manufacturing hub. They have some in the previous 5 or 10 years
Mhm.
before. They
Mhm.
have the big car companies, Toyota. They used to manufacture, but they closed all of them. Now after the pandemic, they realized it, and now they are again coming with the industries. But India, due to the cheap manpower, and we have n number of industries. Even during the pandemic, all the industries were working. Even the IT sectors were became a downfall, but the manufacturing sectors, they were working at least. So if you are a master's from India, you need not to worry about your career. It may be that it will take some time to what you
Mhm.
are thinking. It may take 2 or 3 years more, but you will definitely.
Because I tell you, I deal with the students, and interact with so many thousands of the students, and we know our state, our socio-economic background also, it is not that good in India. So immediately after BTech, no, our parents cannot support us, and the main worry of the student is, sir, now I need to be independent from my home. So here it is MHRD scholarship of 12,500 for MTech, and then you need not to take money from your home, and you do your MTech comfortably. And then, as you said, sir, 1 lakh is okay. So you save 1 lakh in 2 years in MTech, and then land up in PhD and start earning. So in this entire process, you know, we have solved the problem of Indian students, because unemployment is not looking like there, no, and you have international exposure. That is a separate thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that the only thing you have to work hard at one of your states. Suppose if you're getting MHRD scholarship, you can save the money. And I think if you have from a good background, then suppose Abhishek, he is from a above middle class, you know, yeah. So, but there are many students, I think more than 50 or 60% students who cannot afford even to take a loan of 30 to 40 lakhs. So for those students, I think it's, even I will say my example, I would not have been able to take it. I would have been able to, but then I have to work in Australia for 5 or 6 years. I have to repay the money and then I have to come back. But I was never having any intention. I always want to work in England only. So
that's true.
So I prefer, since I did the same thing, I prefer that if a student is getting MTech from India, it's better to go for MTech. Then you apply for a PhD. At that case, you will not really need the money. So if you save 1 or 1.5 lakhs, that's fine. 1 month in any of the European or the UK nation for 1 lakh is fine. And
see, it is very simple. It's very simple, Ambarish. Like when you do your MTech, you're 23, 24, right? Age, if I talk about 21, 22, you graduate, and then 2 more years, 26 you are, and 25 you are. And at the age of 25, if you land up in PhD, and as you are saying, sir, even PhD, you can save up to what calculation you gave me, working for even 7-8 hours a week. So from that calculation, it looks like you are saving 70,000-80,000 plus only. And you are taking care of your family also, right? That simply means a common graduate in India who's doing engineering, if he decides one day that now after engineering I need not to worry and I need to be sincere, little bit sincere, and मेरे को इसमें कोई बहुत लंबा चौड़ा rocket science या कोई difficulty नहीं लग रहा. It is not that only you need to be extraordinarily good to land up in these kind of things. If you maintain your credentials on an average, 8 CGPA maintaining in MTech is not a trouble, and publishing a paper, if you for 2 hours, if you work sincerely, publishing a paper is not a trouble. Mailing a professor is not a problem. So you can, think of a good career for you, right or not?
Yes, sir. And even that thing is, since you are also MTech from IT, you must be knowing that clearing GATE is not very challenging. It's the only thing you have to know how to clear the examination.
Yes. And Ambarish, before, I'm sorry to cut you short here, but I want to add one more thing here. Even people think that getting into IIT is difficult. I tell you one more thing there. If some student has CGPA 8.5 or 8 in BTech from very ordinary college, and his GATE is merely qualified, 40-45 marks, he can land up in a course called MS course. There's another course, MS course. You understand that?
Yeah, MS by research. There is a course, MS course.
So for that, you need not to have very high GATE score also. And MS research is even better for PhD.
Yeah, MS research. I think MS research they take 2.5 years, or Madras is 3 years. But that's fine. You are investing one of your life, but it's not going to waste. Yeah, it's you're getting a degree from IIT, and then you will different. And MS research is better if you want to go for PhD, because it gives you much more exposure in the research field. Yeah.
So this is what actually, what the purpose of this entire interaction and what I'm doing. The purpose of this was, when you do your engineering, be positive. Engineering gives you career, number 1. Number 2, if you do engineering with interest, you will certainly get good score. And if you do with interest, you will do something good in your BTech project also. Then you land up in masters, and you do masters also happily, because eventually you are going to land up in the places like where Ambarish you are, or where Abhishek you are, world over. And then there is no trouble of job or something, because you are getting good scholarships. So I want simply these students who are doing BTech or MTech, that they should do it out of interest. And they should give their 100% into that, because eventually they are going to get jobs. As of now, the situation is, when you are doing engineering, you keep asking yourself a question. Am I going to get a job? No, I have taken a wrong decision. Maybe I will not get a job, or maybe I will not get a career. Is there PSU coming? Like presently, I tell you, you both are sitting outside India. I'm telling you the situation in India. Students keep on asking, sir, how many PSU jobs are coming? Not everybody can go to PSU, nor everybody should go to PSUs. PSU is not, because what statistics you gave me, a person can say more than what he can save in PSUs. Moreover, international exposure also. So those students who are actually good in engineering, so they should do that nicely, so that they will get career, very good career after that.
Yeah, I will just add a small story. One of my friend Aniket Anand, he was there. He was doing his master from IIT, and he left masters because he got job in PSC in sale. So RDCS Ranchi, he went to Ranchi, and then after that, next year he finished his masters, and now he's desperately looking for a PhD. But he's trying his best. Hopefully, he should get one. So now he wants, no, no, no. I don't want to work in PSC. It's a very monotonous job.
Yes, yes.
I'm not. Hopefully, I'm not offending any of the PSU candidates, but. Uh, it's a good job, but it's a type of monotonous job if you're working in the, but whereas if you are a PhD and if you're working in a research, I think depends on the person to person. But
Yes,
yeah, rather than people should think that, oh, I will not have a life, I will not get a good job. Rather, people should focus their entire energy on getting good marks, getting good, not publication, but getting good grasp of the subject, so that they can excel in the postgraduate examinations, and eventually they will land. Because I was a very average student, sir. My BTech CGPA was 8.25, my MTech CGPA was 8.59, and then I landed. But my supervisor always say that I have created wonders in my PhD. Because coming from a normal college and then getting the Malcolm Checklin Award, which I'm very close to, so it depends on how much amount
Yes,
you're
yes.
investing.
See, I find both of you above average or very good. I think in your backgrounds also, engineering, kind of like Abhishek has done his graduation from a college, it's a very good college, and then you have above average academics also. And I know many students who are not of this background, still they are in very good universities abroad, and they are enjoying very good career. So at any stage of your career, if you start putting effort and become sincere, and if you're ready to explore, world out there, then engineering is a wonderful profession, and it will certainly give you career. That is what I believe, and that is what all of the students should know. That now, last round of my discussion is related, Abhishek, to you, that what you are planning now. And Abhishek, you are also working as a freelancer, so what now you are planning within 4-5 minutes?
So currently I have applied for PhD because that was also in one of my lists that I want to do PhD. But so I've applied for PhD in University of New South Wales only. I followed the same process as mentioned by Ambarish, and he was one of my referee as well for my PhD as well.
Great.
And so I've applied for that. I'm waiting for the outcome, and hopefully it's coming next month. And probably from next year I will be starting with that PhD, and it's in advanced manufacturing. And again, material science, you were discussing about material science. It is related to that, but it's more of their designing process.
Okay.
And because it's aligning with my passion of designing as well as materials, and of course the manufacturing aspect as well. So I'm that, but for past 1 year, I've been a freelancer designer. I applied for various jobs. I got into interviews, but eventually there are other factors that why I didn't get the jobs. Eventually, I'm learning. It's a learning process. Like it depends on luck also. Like I mentioned while I was talking to you before, there is if is a very big word in this. If you get a job in Australia, yes, for the freelancer designer, yes, you have to go out of your box, you have to go out of your comfort zone, you have to go on road specifically, approach the companies, talk to them. If you need anyone, outsource your yes. And I would recommend most of the Indian students, even if they are in bachelor's, start using LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the way more than 90% of the people in Australia are getting jobs through LinkedIn.
Okay.
You just need like you write a cover letter for PhD to professors. Similarly, you just write a small message or an email to any of the recruiters in Australia that I was looking through your company. I was quite fascinated. If you can give me some time to talk, we can have a quick chat or we can have a quick coffee and something like that. And yes, culture in abroad is very much different as compared to India. In India, people hesitate to talk to people, like there is some sort of hidden, like they are afraid to talk to people in industry. But frankly, they're not the people to be afraid of. They're very friendly people. You just need to talk to them. They're ready to help you. They'll guide you, and eventually, if they like you, they themselves will offer you the job. And this process is called the cold call. It's like a cold call, an informal discussion with them, and then they are impressed with you. They look at your CV and all, and they immediately offer you the job, even if it is not advertised on the company.
Okay, so is Abhishek, you're talking about the Indian students who are in Australia, or you're talking about the Indian students in India?
I'm talking about the students in Australia, and the LinkedIn part that I told you, that is for everyone, even if they are in
suppose
India,
there is a
abroad,
student in India and he uses LinkedIn and he wants to approach somebody in Australia. Is that feasible? I mean, he can do that.
Yes, they can approach. Yes, your LinkedIn profile must be it must be really, really good. Like you have to compete with other people in abroad also, because more than 50-60 people send their messages to every day. So they look at your that is why I said the message must be very precise and concise, and it should not be long, because they don't have enough time to read your messages and all. So obviously you have to impress them in a few words. So it's just like that. You can approach them. This is the way you get your PhD. This is the way you can get a job.
Great.
This is the way you get networking.
Great.
Networking is in
very
this
important.
world,
Very important. Ambarish, in 4-5 minutes, what road ahead now for you?
You want for the rest of the people, right? That's
I want your only now. From here, what career forward you are thinking of pursuing for you?
Okay, so I always wanted to land into any of the IITs as a faculty. So when I started my master's, so that's the only one and only aim. So I finished 1 year of my postdoctoral experience here. So I will go for another 1 year, and I think from next year I will start applying for the IITs, and whichever IITs comes in the first with the specific preferences as IIT Delhi Applied Mechanics is my first preference.
Great.
IIT Bombay, IIT Kharagpur, IIT Hyderabad, IIT Roorkee Structural Engineering. So these are in my top priority list.
Okay, great. Ambarish, I forgot to ask you one question which was there in my mind before interview, and that was, can a BTech student think of directly getting admission into PhD courses?
Yeah, sure, he can. He can surely get into the admission into PhD. Actually, what happens, people don't know about all the. Even I also was not aware when I did my BTech, or I came to know about this when I was starting my PhD. That's what I'm saying. The Indians, not Indians, I think any student, they are very well equipped, but they are not aware of all these links which are available. So yeah, getting a PhD after a BTech is very, very easy. The only thing is you have to exceptionally score a good numbers CGPA in BTech, and it should be from very good university. That's the requirement if you want to get into the PhD directly without a master's.
Okay.
So suppose in IIT also offer direct PhD for the BTech student, but the criteria is they have to be BTech from IIT. Similarly, in Australia, if you want a PhD after your BTech, so if your BTech is from IIT, they will directly consider your application with a publication as well. That's what I'm saying.
So publication is also required.
Yeah, even if it's a second author.
And you get very good scholarship in that case, right?
Yeah, scholarship is. I think Australian scholarships are very good. I think they pay the most, I think, as compared to any other European or UK nations.
That's great. So Ambarish, we will welcome you back to India. As you said, you will come back and you'll join IIT system. That will be great here. So,
yeah, and I will love to work with you. I will love to know more about your company, because I also I want that the gap between the industry and the academic should be as less as possible, because in India there is a huge gap between the academics and the
So and Ambarish, just before interaction, you were showing your nationalist feelings, and you showed us the national flag also. I want you to show your national flag also here. Yeah,
my national flag is this.
Great, great. Great, Ambarish, that gives the thrill.
The most. Yeah. Every day after, first I pray my father, he's there, and then I salute to this, because my father always told that if a person can't love his country, he can't love anything. He cannot love his family if he cannot love the country. This is something which is.
That's true. India is great, and Indians are also great. That is true.
Yeah.
Nothing, no doubt in that. So I think we come to an end of this wonderful session. I'm really thankful to both of you, Abhishek and Ambarish, Because there are so many things, believe me, so many things which you have told, which will be useful to students, and even I was not knowing. Let me very categorically tell you, I was not knowing about this gyandhan.com. I was not knowing. Now this is my next mission, to make a full video on this. I was not knowing about job.ac.uk. I was not knowing about euroscience.com, and I was not knowing the kind of networking which Abhishek told about LinkedIn, how it is to be done, cover letter, how it is to be made. So it was a wonderful session, enriched session from your side. And I'm very sure students are going to get benefit out of it. Now, last one favor I want from you is, like, when I publish this video on YouTube, this will be, I will send you the link of that, and students will have some queries, which if you find time, you please answer to that. Plus, if some student if some student wants desperately to ask you something, give me the liberty to share your email ID with them, so that at least if you find the time to answer their queries, it will be very useful to that.
Yeah, that's completely fine, sir. You can, I think you can even share my WhatsApp number as well. That's completely fine. I'm always more than happy to help any of the students.
Yes, that's great. So thanks a lot, Abhishek, and thank you, Ambarish, and all the very best to both of you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My just one thing, sir, that I will share my Gmail as well, because this is a university email. So suppose if I leave the university, then people will not able to reach to me. So I will share my Gmail as well, so you can share that email ID.
Surely I will do that, because I'll get your contacts in detail after this thing interaction, and you can send me your details on my mail ID, which we are interacting, and then I will store that. So if whenever some student wants to know that details, or wants to interact with you, like Ambarish Sarka, they say that Ambarish Sarka, we want details, sir, we want to contact him, then I will give them your Gmail account, or I'll give them mail ID. So they will ask you something. If you can help, that is great for them. Fine.
Sure. That's completely. It's all my pleasure, sir.
Okay. Thanks a lot to both of you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Much appreciated, sir. Okay, bye.